Good evening, all viewers. This is from Amasi East Zone chapter. We are having today's online CME program on human factors to enhance outcomes in surgery. May I request our Honorable President of Amasi, Dr. C.J. Varghese, to say a few words.
Thank you, Dr. Visaru. And I would like to welcome each one of you for today's online CME program that is happening every first Thursday of the month. And this time it is a very special occasion for Amasi because we are associating with the Association of Minimal Access Surgeons of Great Britain and Ireland. And we are happy the president of the association itself is, is with us as a speaker. And we have a panel of eminent moderators, and Dr. Bhavanta, who is the president of Minimal Access Surgeons of Association of Sri Lanka, is with us today as a moderator, and Dr. Selvasegar is a senior colorectal surgeon from UK, will be also is joining us as a moderator. And our own from Amasi said, we have Professor M.L. Sahasa, services yet to join, and Dr. Prakash Sasmal will be also moderating the session. And we know that Amasi is conducting a lot of academic events. Apart from this online CME, we have online surgery demonstration that is happening on every Thursday. And we have many other academic activities which our Secretary Dr. Deboshi will be elaborating. And once again, I welcome you all, and I hand over to Deboshi, our Secretary.
Thank you, President, sir. I'll not waste much time. It's my duty to start with the quiz. We'll have two quiz questions. One will be just now at the beginning. Prabhu, I request you to put up the quiz question. And the second will be just after the lecture. So this is the first one. You have to answer this within the next 5 minutes. Will be the link will be available there. And we'll have the next one after the lecture by Dr. Tan. The announcements regarding Amasi's upcoming programs, I'll be putting it after the discussion. Prabhu, I think you can move on. Over to Biswarup to start the CME.
Thank you, Dr. Devashi Sharma. May I now introduce the moderators? Dr. Chelia Selvaskar, the consultant colorectal and the robotic surgeon, is the divisional medical director, clinical services and specialist surgery, the Christie NHS Foundation Trust, Manchester. He is also the clinical director, Manchester Surgical Skills and Simulation Center, honorary clinical professor, Faculty of Health, Social Care, Medicine, Edge Hill University, honorary senior lecturer, University of Manchester. So welcome, Dr. Selvaskar, as a moderator. Next, Dr. Bhavanta Gamas, President and Founder President of Sri Lankan Association of the Minimal Access and Digital Surgeons. Welcome, Dr. Bhavanta. Then Professor Mahalal Sir has not yet joined. He is an eminent laparoscopic surgeon and the ex-HOD of the IPGMR Kolkata, and the author of the Bedside Clinics in Surgery, which is a very popular book across India and neighboring countries. And Professor Prakash Kumar Sasmal, an eminent laparoscopic surgeon. He is a professor of surgery at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Bhubaneswar. I welcome the four moderators.
Good evening.
And may I request Dr. Selvaskar to introduce our today's honorable speaker.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bose. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce Professor Tan Arulampalam, who's a very close friend of mine. He's a consultant surgeon with over 20 years of experience. He has worked both in the NHS and in the private sector in UK. He has extensive research interest and also interested in innovation. He has a passion to get the best out of surgeons for the benefit of the patients. He is also a board member of the European Association of Endoscopic Surgeons. He's currently the president of the ALSGBI. Professor Arulampalam is going to give a presentation on human factors to enhance outcomes in surgery, following which we shall have a discussion with question and answers. Over to you, Tan. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sekar. Now, hopefully you can see my screen.
It is not on the slide view yet, Tan, but we can see the slides.
Okay. So there we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sekar.
Great pleasure to
hang on a
be
minute.
part of this joint MRC and ALSGBI presentation. My name is Professor Tan Arulampalam. I'm a consultant surgeon and president of ALSGBI. I'm going to talk to you about a subject that we don't really focus on, and it's the non-technical skills that will help us elevate from competency to mastery. And I think it's a very, very important subject. We all start our journey in surgery thinking that we're the top gun, but often we come across problems, challenges, whether it's the financing of the hospital, whether it's the complexity of the disease or technical shortfalls in our own skills. And so we really need to look at how we can bring our best selves to our job, to our work, and work well within our teams. And so today, I'm going to look at why we should be bothering with human factors. We'll look at some definitions, we'll look at the human factors topics, and a playbook for better, and hopefully you'll have some decent takeaway. The key message is that we are all human. We are beyond the age of the master builder, and we need to understand the concepts of psychological safety, civility, because the consequences of not doing this are immense, and I'll explore these in some detail. So we'll look at what we mean by human factors. We need to understand the concept of the vulnerable human. We need to understand risk and our understanding and acceptance and mitigation of risk, situational awareness, how we communicate, and this concept of the team. So what's the problem? Well, since the global financial crisis in 2008, there has been a meltdown with decreased spending. COVID has made this even worse. There has been political intervention in healthcare, whether you are in the West or across the world in the East. The population is aging, and we have real problems with obesity. And obesity is not confined to developed countries. It is also seen hugely in developing countries also. Data and technology has transformed the way we interact with other human beings. However, we haven't quite seen that transformation into healthcare and the outcomes that we give to our patients. Our workforce is diminishing, and we know that human health and planetary health are inextricably linked. But the real problem is, in my view, that there's huge variation between various different providers in terms of outcomes. And that's between clinics and between hospitals. And this costs money. It costs the patients their livelihood in some cases. So let's look at what really interests me and what I think should be the key theme of this talk. 1 in 10 patients are harmed in hospital care, and that is 5.7 to 8.4 million deaths occurring due to poor quality of care. 14 out of every 100 patients are affected by a healthcare-associated infection, and 2% of our patients who are undergoing surgery have complications, and the numbers on global volumes of 230 to 300 million operations is huge. 20 to 40% of healthcare spending is wasted due to poor quality of care and safety failures, and 15% of our hospital costs are due to patient harm caused by adverse events. And we know, looking at the Joint Commission from the US, that the three top factors in these things going wrong are human factors, failure, leadership failure, and problems with communication. We have known in the cardiac space 20 years ago that mortality, morbidity, and outcomes were very poor. And the cardiac surgeons were forced to change their behavior, to change training and education, and to change the systems and processes that they worked in. And they have come down immensely in terms of their outcomes, poor outcomes. So they are an exemplar, really. And we think in GI surgery, well, there isn't a problem. Funnily enough, GI surgery has exactly the same problems, almost to the letter. Atul Gawande very succinctly put this estimation of global harm occurring through surgery. And actually, we can consider surgery to be a disease of its own. So we need to change, and we need to look at human factors. And many of you may be listening thinking, what are human factors? And I would normally ask you to give me your views, but because of the nature of this talk, I'll go through some of these concepts. Human factors essentially are all the things that make us different from logical, completely predictable machines. How we think and relate to other people, equipment, and our environment. It's about how we perform our roles and how we can optimize performance to improve safety and efficiency. In simple terms, it's the things that affect our personal performance, and that was a definition given by the Clinical Human Factors Group. So human factors and healthcare in the medical setting have often been parallel to the aviation industry. As a pilot, you often come in, you turn left, you have a window seat, you're often flying to somewhere sunny. But when the genie comes out of the bottle and you have an adverse event, it's catastrophic. And really, no one goes to work to do a bad job. I'm reminded of René Lariche's quote in Henry Marsh's book, Do No Harm. Every surgeon carries within himself a small cemetery where from time to time he goes to pray, a place of bitterness and regret, where he must look for an explanation of his failures. So I'm going to show you a short movie. Just watch it and tell me what you think. So it's very interesting because most people watching this think, how could that person have been so foolish? How did they drive into what is obviously some water? But actually, if you assess that, the car is very nice. The person can't be that much of a fool. He drives into what he thinks is a car park. There are bins and trash cans on hard standing. But what's incredible is this person gets to the other side and actually manages not to get his feet wet, even though he has this disaster. So this happens every day in healthcare, in our hospitals, and we have to understand why and do an analysis and allow our staff to talk about.
I'm just moving this on.
What's going on? So the principles of human factors are that error is normal. We know that it doesn't matter whether you paint the signs on the road or whether you do complex surgery. We also know that performance is variable. This is a very neat experiment where medical students were asked to separate red and green balls into different gallipots, and they were deprived of sleep. And you can see that after about 17 hours, their performance starts to really dip. And once you get to about 23, 24 hours, their performance is similar to having a significant amount of alcohol in their bloodstream. And we understand that this is the sort of performance that you can have if you are under enormous stress and suffering from fatigue. We know that systems and processes interact with people and culture. And that is a very, very important thing to understand, because no system is foolproof to a sufficiently inventive fool. And we have to get this concept of the vulnerable human. And we all know that we will try and take the shortcut. That is a human thing to do. So let's talk about risk. Heinrich used to work in the gas and oil industry, and he very neatly discovered that there was a ratio of a very catastrophic serious accident to a serious incident to near misses. And that ratio was 1 to 30 to 300. And in safety critical industries, whether it's oil or gas or aviation, we know that there's a culture of openness, of trying not to blame, and also from learning from the near misses. And we don't really do that well enough and systematically enough in healthcare. If you look at healthcare, the publications suggest that actually the near misses to major incident ratio is actually somewhere in the region of one major intraoperative event encountered for every 19.4 near misses. So in surgery, this problem is much more critical. If we look at aviation, when British Airways changed its reporting structure, you can see the high impact incidents, that's the serious impacts, that's hull losses, from 1990 to 97, dramatically reduced. But you can see the near misses, the low impact incidences were reported much more. And so that is a very important understanding of risk and reporting near misses, which we really need our heads round in healthcare. So let's look at mental models. I'm going to show you a picture. I'd like you to tell me how many dolphins you can see. About 50% of people see two lovers, but actually if you look hard enough, there's a dolphin there, a dolphin here, another dolphin, a dolphin here, and another two here. So our minds are programmed in information, and that can be visual or auditory. If I say to you bus, lane, child on a bike, emergency department, our brains are furiously trying to put that information together. And depending on your background and your priming, the bus could be red, it could be yellow, it could be silver, depending on where you come from. The lane could be a country lane or it could be a bus lane. And this child on a bike, our brains put the child on the bike perhaps at the wheels of the bus because it's been knocked over, and we transport the child into the emergency department. But those four lines are totally unlinked, and our brain are trying desperately to put them together. And the same can be said if we ask you to think about what does a taxi in your town look like? Well, depending on where you come from, it's very different. But the power of the brain is utterly amazing. Now, you can all read this, I'm sure. If you look at it carefully, you can read this word soup. I couldn't believe that I could actually understand what I was reading, the phenomenal power of the human mind, etc. So I'm going to show you another nice little video. This is a picture of a car that got stuck in the mud in a village in Morocco. And this is a very neat expression of how the brain works and how you can solve this problem.
I'm sorry, mister. I wanted to ask if this meeting is free to participate in.
Fun examples, but when you get into healthcare, it becomes very serious. Because can you tell the difference between the dexamethasone and the adrenaline, or the heparin in amongst the ephedrine vials. And so when we interact with people, we can also misinterpret because our slow brain, our system 2, is trying to work out things, but our fast brain, our system 1 brain, to give us a story that we can deal with. And what about teams? Well, a good team is a group of people who work cooperatively towards a shared goal. Teams are very important in healthcare. As I've said, we're beyond the age of the master builder.
Fuck Brahma, fuck Brahma.
On what made a really good team, what enabled and what inhibited, there are some various factors. So there are things like respect, autonomy, ability to plan, fairness within the team, giving clear roles, good communication and sensitive feedback. And having role models is really important. And of course, you don't just the inhibitory factors, but there are behaviors such as domineering, bullying, fear, unkindness, being a mood hoover, sucking the life out of the team, being chaotic, having no planning. NASA and the University of Texas looked at the key domains that are involved in good teamwork. And of course, being up in space, you need the team to work very well. They were briefing, communication and decision-making, team self-feedback, inquiry, leadership and followership, interpersonal relationships, preparation, workload and distractions. Now, all of these are important. But if I was to ask you, is there one factor that is the gatekeeper to all the others, then many people will pick on different items. Interpersonal relationships. And so we have this concept of team resource management. And that's basically looking at the human on one end, their human factor skills, skills, and then team resource management. I'm going to just play you this video now on situational awareness. It's fairly self-explanatory.
Hello, Microsoft Tech Support.
Important aspects of
the monkey business solution. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the ball. And that's the monkey business. Visible gorilla. The monkey business illusion.
I think we'll just move on from that video.
So it's really important to have some situational awareness in our workplace, but of equal importance is the role of psychological safety. And if you're interested in this topic, I can't do it justice with just a couple of slides. I really recommend you read Amy Edmondson's book, The Fearless Organization, and her latest publication is a book called The Right Kind of Wrong. It talks about intelligent failure and how high-performing organizations allow this concept of psychological safety where everyone is able to speak up in order to improve the outcomes for the whole organization and the individuals there. And psychological safety can be likened to a very, very precious vase on a table. You don't want to break that vase. The table represents our behaviors. And if you think about the workplace, what we really want is kindness, empathy, civility, and assertiveness. But the table top has to be kept supported by the legs. And those are our attitudes of respect, curiosity, trust, and humility. And psychological safety goes hand in hand with civility. And in healthcare, as the pressures of our patients, of the complexity of the diseases that we're dealing with, the requirements of electronic patient record, we have lost some of that civility. And it's very interesting. Chris Turner has done a lot of work on this. He set up the organization Civility Saves Lives. If you are the victim of incivility, so the recipient, you're on average 61% less able to function cognitively. If you're a bystander, so somebody who witnesses incivility, there's a 20% reduction in your cognitive ability. That's staggering. So they're 30% less likely to help others just by witnessing somebody being rude in the workplace. And this affects patients and relatives, and it has an overall reduction in the cognitive capacity and productivity of your team. So this is really viral, and it needs to be addressed and understood by our teams, our colleagues, and our organizations. And this is one of the big take-home messages for you today. Communication is very interesting also. We tend to spend most of our time talking as social communicators, but then we get into the workplace and we really should be using professional language. And the aviation industry is very good at this. Once you get below 10,000 feet, when you're coming into land, no irrelevant conversation it takes place. It's all focused on getting the plane safely on the ground. And of course, in the crisis situation, we go from that jargon into specific types of language, which can be quite curt. But we also have to understand that listening is one of our worst senses. So we listen in small packets. I hope you've listened to some of what I've said, but we turn on, we turn off, and then we formulate responses. So listening with intent to understand is really important. But what's really staggering is if you hear some unwelcome news, if somebody is rude to you, if somebody challenges you, then your ability to listen just goes away. And we see that with our cancer patients. When we give them bad news, they almost don't hear the rest of the consultation. And understanding this in the workplace, trying to work efficiently in a highly complex environment, it's key that you understand this. And English being the first language is also an issue. As we become a more globalized society, we have people working from all different countries and backgrounds, and it's important that there is a standardized language. So all of these human factors come together. And I'd like to play you a very tragic video, but also very empowering video of a lady who had an upset in her care, and her very brave husband, who was a pilot, has done some great work on patient safety.
My name is Martin Bromley. I'm dad to two young children, Victoria and London. And this is the story of the death of my wife, Elaine, who died in March 2005 as a result of an attempted routine operation that went wrong. I'm an airline pilot with a background in human factors. I want to make a difference. I want to be able to say to Victoria and Adam in a few years' time that although their mum died, the lessons from that have been learned, and that there is a change in practice in healthcare in the UK. Elaine actually had very good health, but she had suffered from some sinus problems, and as a result, a consultant had recommended that she should have routine sinus surgery. We left at 8:30 in the morning, having kissed mummy goodbye, and went off to do the weekly food shop.
So this was a very, very tragic incident, and what
I think we'll just move on from that.
After his poor wife passed away, was he actually looked back at what happened, and there were root cause analysis, and there was a lot of retraining, and what he was really happy was that all those doctors returned back to work, which was really, really important for him. So what I'd really like to do now, just as we come to the end of my session, is talk about some of the tools that we have to help improve the situation. So these are really simple tools. So the first one is the briefing. So we all know that we want to have a goal. And so briefing at the beginning of an operating list is really important to clarify what the goals are, what we know and what we understand, what the plans, roles and responsibilities of everyone there, and also what can go wrong, how they'll know things have gone wrong, and how they'll recognize how we will recover. So the briefing is, as well as the WHO checklist, is a very, very important tool to have at your disposal. But after surgery, after the list, it's important to have some debriefing. So what a simple way of doing this is to look at what we were expecting to happen, what actually happened, the difference, and what we learned. And that quickly. And time is really important because you have to have the whole team together. We work in an environment where things really are changing so rapidly. In terms of staff turnover, in terms of skills, the onset of robotic surgery. So there's a lot of change and flux. So learning must be at the center of what we do. Those are two very simple tools, the briefing tool, the debriefing. But I've talked about psychological safety, civility, the importance of teamwork, the assessment of risk, understanding mental models, how people's brains work, and also accommodating the fact that people will have different situational awareness. So again, that comes into that communications piece. And working as a team, it's very interesting. There is this concept of everyone being equal, but of course there is an I in team. So you have to look after the individual in that team. And your teams are high-performing teams, whether they're airline pilots, whether they're elite sportsmen, they all have to be looked after very well. So we used to focus on the individual a lot. So it used to be the surgeon, and just like a Formula One driver, we spent a lot of time training the surgeon. But however many courses you have, however well you train people, they're not always going to get the best results. We just know that we see master surgeons being let down if their ward staff or if the theatre team are not trained or if they don't have the right equipment. So we spent a lot of time on team training, and this is like training the pit crew. And I think that's really important. You know, if you go and look at Red Bull or Mercedes, they can do a pit stop in 2.3 seconds. So, you know, we are getting much better at working with teams, but we have to address the hierarchies that exist in our surgical teams. We have to address the level of training and recertification in our teams, because we can't simply accept some of the standards that we have because things are changing so quickly. And now we know that we also must accept and acknowledge the people who are collecting our data. Data is absolute gold at the moment. And you may say, well, you're too busy for improvements, but unfortunately, there is no room for that. So in this world of technology, it's very easy to say it's all about the tech, but unless you have the user interface, the user experience, and the user interface being absolutely 100%, then delivering good outcomes is difficult. And that means having great technology, great technical training, but also having human factors. So high-performing surgical teams really allow the surgeon to achieve their full potential and deliver the best patient outcomes. And we must keep the patient at the center of all these discussions. So patient outcomes really depend on technical skills plus non-technical skills. What goes on in your OR black box? Do you really have an open system, psychologically safe, where you're constantly learning from error, intelligent failure? What impact do you have as a leader? How do you manage your team? Do you understand team resource management? Have you looked at the concept of psychological safety and civility? Because these are really, really, really important concepts that I'd like to leave you with. If you've enjoyed what I've talked about, the ALSGBI do have their podcast. I would encourage you to listen. We have talks not just on non-technical skills, but also technical skills and disease processes, but also looking at important surgical lives. It's been a real pleasure giving you this talk. I'm happy to take questions now. Thank you very much for your time, and long may the association between LRC and ALSGBI continue to flourish. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Professor Arulampalam. That was a fantastic presentation on human factors, how it applies to surgery. So I will invite Professor Bhavanta Gamage to lead the discussion. I am aware that he is he's doing a camp in a remote part of Sri Lanka.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bhavanta. Thank you.
Thank you, Sekna. Thank you. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes.
Thank you, Tan, for that excellent talk. We really enjoyed, and as we all know, our epicenter is patient safety, and as you said, technical skills are important. However, the non-technical skills plays a major role, and surgeon is the man who has to drive his team, and team is the success for the outcome of surgery. So now we have problems. We face problems regularly with our teams because of different directives. Our teams are changing, and how it's really challenge to the surgeon to keep his team and keep the maintain the psychological safety. So how would you advise or what are the important things that surgeon should be doing to keep his team as a bunch of safe surgeons or surgical team? What are the important things you should tell our juniors?
I think the most important thing is that you have to role model. We have some great surgeons, but the higher you are, the bigger the fall when there is a patient safety incident. And you can see it in the attrition, the burnout, the psychological status of some of our surgeons. So I think the first thing is to accept and acknowledge that non-technical skills are as important as technical skills, the process, the staffing, and how you approach things. I think there's a great book called The Fearless Organization and another book that Amy Edmondson has written called The Right Kind of Wrong. And this is about learning from error. And unless you build a system where your junior staff, your nursing staff feel empowered to feedback, you will not grow, and you won't progress. And you can see this in all the safety critical industries, whether it's oil and gas, the airline and space industry. They have excellent exemplar safety records. But in healthcare, we tolerate poor performance, we tolerate morbidity, we tolerate poor results. And very often, if you talk to an individual surgeon, they will say, no, it's not me, I've got great results. But actually, when you ask a colorectal surgeon to show their last 2 years of results, they will have forgotten about the anastomotic leak 18 months ago. It's so painful, they put it to the side. So I think acknowledging that there is a problem is the next thing. And I think then you have to set a culture, and the culture comes from training, education, and repeated diligence. So what the army does is that they train for about 60, 70, 80% of the time, and they're in action for 20%. In medicine, we do it the other way around. We're doing stuff for 95% of the time and training for 5%. So we need to go slow to go fast. And actually, as we have this wave of technology, whether it's AI, robotics, minimal access surgery, unless we improve the user experience unless we take time to acknowledge that we have to slow down, we will just carry on making the same errors over and over again. We need to make some progress. So I would say there are three things. One is acknowledge the fact. Two, have role models. And three, real diligent training and education.
Thank you. And how about now? We feel now most of the time our junior doctors follow protocols, and they think following a protocol puts them into a state of so-called safe environment. And we know in practice, just following a protocol doesn't mean anything unless you're thinking in line of the safety. So blindly following protocols has caused some, at least in this part of the world, causing some problems. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think following protocols are there as guidance. As doctors, we are the last guardians of quality of healthcare. Our administrators will want to cut costs. They want to get more patients treated. But what we do is we are the guardians of healthcare. So I think it's important to have functioning protocols and to keep reviewing and learning. This is what I mean by intelligent failure. The protocols are there, but they're not perfect. It's a bit like flying in when the weather's good, it's fine, but when the weather is bad, you have to change tack. And I think what we have to think about our trainees and our own personal conduct in this sphere is that we're like elite athletes. Now, elite athletes go and practice, they go and train, they look after themselves, they eat well, they sleep well, and most importantly, they have a core knowledge. In medicine, we think just having the core knowledge is sufficient. And I think you can work towards protocols, but if you're an athlete, let's say you're a cricketer, you go out and the conditions can change. The pitch can be different. The overhead conditions can be different. You could be facing, one of the world's greatest fast bowlers. So you have to adapt what you have protocolized and internalized and everything you've learned. So I think guidance is important, and the guidance is important to get everyone to go to the same standard, but we have to acknowledge that you can't be complacent. So constantly staying awake and not falling asleep at the wheel.
Thanks, Tan. Thanks, Bhavanta. So I think Dr. Debashri Sharma, he wants to ask a question. Do you want to come in, please? Thank you.
Dr. Tan, thank you for a very highly informative lecture. As you spoke about these setting up patterns or setting up protocols in the hospitals, how about a coach? Footballs have coaches. Cricket, you mentioned about as coaches. How about having a coach in the operating theatre? A surgeon who knows surgery, who has done so many surgeries, or a person who might not have done those many surgeries, but at least can find faults in you. Do you think that helps, and do you people follow those techniques in your hospitals?
Yeah, we have to be careful about the difference between a coach and a mentor. I've had a coach for 4 years, but the coach that I have is not a surgeon, expert surgeon. The coach I've had has guided me through how I approach problems, how I manage my workload, how I manage my time, and where I actually direct my efforts. So I think it's important to have somebody that one can talk to. I think the coaching in the OR is an even bigger issue, because I think from a technical point of view, many of our surgeons are coming out, and when they start operating, they're in the black box of their OR. No, the only mark of success if the patient comes out. So having somebody watch you and being open to constructive criticism is a real art. And I think we're about 30 years behind the airline industry, because the airline industry do self report, they make sure they're fit to fly, and they always have somebody checking in, and they get praised if that happens. But in our ORs, I think as surgeons, because of the nature of the job and the timing and the lack of resources, it's very difficult to get two people in one place. In fact, I started my career, I used to do joint operating with another consultant, and it was it helped me grow. And I think the new generation of surgeons very much come to the table with a growth mindset. I think it's a great question.
The airline industry and the surgery, no doubt we are behind them, but in the airline industry, it is the machine which is doing. Machine is the main thing, but here the surgeon has more of, the surgeon is operating the machine. When you are operating through the robot, so it is the robot is being fully controlled by the surgeon himself. So both are, according to me, it is slightly different. No doubt, the pilot saves more lives in his lifetime more than a surgeon. But my approach to a coach is that if somebody, I had a senior faculty with me who hardly used to operate, but his surgical acumen was very good. I still remember him for the points which he used to tell me during surgeries, and what he used to say, which plane to get into, which if you go this way, you'll have trouble. You use your left hand more, try to use your right hand in dissecting that part holding. So those things definitely helped. And I think the concept of coach in the operating theater, probably if assessed properly, will come up very nicely. It is very difficult in our kind of a system where we have our system, the government system. It is difficult to get it done, but definitely I think it should be. It has its own place, I think.
I agree with you. In public systems, they don't like two experienced people being in the same place. I think the airline industry, we have to be careful, because people try and look at what they can compare. The fact of the matter is, you're doing highly safety critical acts, and how you do them is slightly different. But actually, there's a process management system, there's a team working system, and if it goes wrong, it's catastrophic in both instances. It's just that we tolerate small things going wrong. So if you look at all the publications on intraoperative error that have consequence, and starting with the work of Birkmeyer, that in the OR, the lowest quartile surgeons in performance have the worst outcomes, highest deaths, highest readmissions, highest all-cause mortality, highest sepsis rate. And the highest quartile surgeons have consequently low mortality, readmissions, etc. But we haven't got to a state where we can actually look at the pilot and help them, because what happens is we go into punishment mode rather than education mode. And that's the problem with medicine. There's, however much we say there's a no blame culture, the stakes are so high and it's very emotional that actually we start to punish our most gifted, talented, committed surgeons. So we have to find a balance, and I think that will take a bit of time. I think democratizing surgery, 20 years ago when I started as a consultant, there were very few places doing laparoscopic surgery. Now you go to the hospital round the back of Beyond, and they're doing laparoscopic surgery, and they're doing it well. And the key is now to address these and say, okay, everyone is doing this, let's do it better. And a coach is a great idea. And of course, we can do this now with technology. You can have proximy or rods and cones, and we need to set up. It's one of the things that Amasi and ALS could do. We could set up a faculty that is able to dial in to surgeries, and you're not bounded by geography. You can, I could dial into India. Somebody could dial in from India to the UK. We just have to get some legalities right. Where does the coach stop and the surgeon start, as it were? But yeah, very interesting topics.
Thank you. That is a good discussion there. Are there any other questions or comments from any other faculty or this? Yeah, Prakash Kumar Sasmal.
Dr. Tan, very nice points actually you have put. So a few things only I'll be adding to that, and also I'll be asking you. You rightly said that the AI is coming up in a big way. So the surgeons, as we know the dictum that we should learn, unlearn, and relearn the things so that there will be minimum error, and also will be giving quality care to the patients. And so, what is your actually take on AI? Because AI is coming in a big way. Every day we are hearing that there is now AI will be taking up this, that, and all this. So, how the surgeons will be coping up with just embracing the AI in the future? Can you just give some tips what you are using at present to minimize the surgical errors or decision making, and what in the future you are expecting more?
That's a really good question. The truth is we're only at the foothills of understanding AI. And if you want to really understand the power of AI, then you can read a book by Mustafa Suleyman called The Coming Wave. And he set up DeepMind in the UK. So AI, essentially, those systems can be used in computer vision to aid surgeons. They can be used for looking at medical records. And all of these can help decision making. And we have to understand that there are three areas that AI, large language models for looking at electronic patient record or computer vision, they can misrepresent things. So they can present something to a human that's wrong. There can be sycophancy, where they pick things that direct a human in to make the wrong decisions, and there can be hallucinations where they completely misinterpret. So one has to have a basic understanding of AI and the problems, but I think it's an education. And as an association, ALSGBI is very much going into this technology. We need to educate our surgeons into the pitfalls, but also the benefits. We have to have a parallel stream looking at regulations, and it would be a great piece of work to do with Amasi to look at what the impact of AI in healthcare is. And there are some great articles in JAMA recently on AI. But also we have to work with industry. So your question is, what are we doing about it? I think the key thing is to gather knowledge and don't jump straight into AI models without understanding what you're trying to do, which tasks they can improve. And we have in the UK regulatory models called software as a medical device. And in order to do that, I'm a clinical safety officer for an AI company. We have to have patient safety logs, hazard logs, and go through a process to look at how this software can impact. And it's a continuous learning process. So this is a big area of growth, and we need to devote a bit of time on this.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more unknown in AI than what we know at the moment. And thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone wants to comment about the presentation, or anyone wants to clarify, or any questions from I didn't see anything from the chat as such, but is there anything anyone wants to ask? Okay, I don't think there are any more questions. So what we can do is we probably can bring this episode to a close. Bhavanta, do you want to say anything, or you want me to sort of finish the meeting as such?
I think it's a fantastic session, and we learn a lot, and we know now what are the pitfalls of AI. We have to explore and grab the best things out of it. So thank you very much, Tan, for that fantastic session, and over to you, Shekhar.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, no, thank you very much. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to collaborate, work with Amasi, as Professor Arulampalam has said. ALSGBI is always looking for opportunities to work with other organizations. We learn from each other. We have had simple cases, but how it is managed in different parts of the world is quite interesting and fascinating. We probably need to get more trainees involved in this going forward. And it's a great start, Tan, with the human factors, because a lot of people in the Indian subcontinent focus on the technical aspects of surgery. If you have a session on how I do it, it's always filled. There's no problem with delegates filling the space. Whereas if you have anything which is non-technical, it is a difficult area to get people in. But that is where we need to focus on. Hopefully, Amasi leadership will agree, and we can probably build something going forward. Thanks everyone for today, and thanks Professor Arulampalam. Thank you very much. Hopefully we can continue.
Thank you very much.
These webinars in future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye now. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
I like Dr. Devarshi Sharma to tell about the upcoming Amasi programs.
Thank you, Biswarup. It's my duty to put up the vote of thanks along with the programs. Programs with the next CME is on the next first Thursday of the next month, which is on the 4th of April. We'll have Dr. Vishal speaking on laparoscopic choledochotomy tips and tricks. He's from Singapore. It will be moderated by Jogendra Prashant and Prashant Rahate. Samir being the convener from West Zone. We have two very upcoming programs. We are introducing an MMAS hernia, that Master of Minimal Access Surgery hernia. The program is on 15th and 16th next week. So we invite all of you to be there during all of you to be there.
Yes, Devarshi, carry on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, but my link. I thought my link is. Achha, we have our MMAS programs on 15th, on 16th, along with the hernia carnival to be held in Chennai, ITC Chennai, organized by GEM Chennai, Dr. Senthilnathan and his team. And then we have our Amasikon in August. The abstracts are being submitted for Amasikon in August. So abstracts are going on. So I request all of you to submit your abstracts along with the videos of in Amasi Click. That's a separate program. Amasi Click is a separate program, and prizes are there for Amasi Click videos also. I request all of you to submit it there. On behalf of Amasi, I'd like to thank all the all involved in this program. We have a very eminent speaker. We are thankful that ALSGBI was part of this, along with Sri Lankan Minimal Access organizations and the other conveners from India. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.